Thank you for your patience. So hello everyone and welcome to our Entergy Career Panel. I'm Cynthia Washington and I'm the Senior Career Advisor in the School of Professional Advancement, and I help students with all aspects of their career development and career exploration. Now I'll turn it over to our moderator, the Dean of the School of Professional Advancement, Suri Duitch.
Thanks so much, Cynthia, and welcome everyone to this career panel with Entergy. We're really excited to be offering it. We're excited to have such great participation. I'm going to give just a real quick quick overview of the School of Professional Advancement, and then introduce our panelists. We have a last-minute replacement. Travis Guidry at Entergy has stepped in at the last minute to replace Matt Dearman, who is in Alabama and is unfortunately without electricity today because of Hurricane Sally. So we're thinking of him and his loved ones and everyone there who's in the middle of that terrible storm. And I guess, you know, being an employee of Entergy doesn't give you a special pass. When a hurricane comes through, you lose your electricity just like everyone else. Unfortunately, wouldn't that be a great perk? So we're thinking of Matt again, and we're really happy to have Travis joining us. So, you know, SoPA, as we call it, is a school within Tulane that is especially focused on teaching working adults and offering applied programs that are relevant to the workplace. And SoPA and Entergy are such a great match, in part because of our focus on mature and experienced students, including veterans, but also because pretty much every one of our degree and certificate programs, both undergraduate and graduate, has relevance to Entergy. And that's both because of the company's core business focus and also because of its size. So there are lots of examples you'd think of, but just to point out a few that might not immediately come up: digital design for communications and user experience, emergency and security studies for physical protection of facilities in the workforce, kinesiology for corporate and employee wellness, and even public administration for government and community relations, right? When you have a company that's as large as Entergy, you have all these different really important functions. So there are two things we're going to try to do today during this panel. The first is to present the audience with some general information about Entergy as an employer. And the second is to have a conversation with these three executives about their own experiences and perspectives working at the company. So this is a conversation, not a series of presentations, and we'll be using the chat box at the bottom of the screen. I'm kind of assuming that people are Zoom pros at this moment, but feel free to put questions and comments in the chat at any point during the presentation, and we'll make sure to circle back around at the end and see if there are any that we haven't covered. So again, thanks to Travis, who manages talent attraction for Entergy, which means I think it's his job to help people see what a great place it is to work. And so it's great to have him joining us because of his day job and also as part of this broader conversation. We also have Yolanda Simmons in my understanding is a new role as the continuous.
Hello. Hi, my name is Yolanda Williams, not Simmons.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you for correcting me. Thank you. So Yolanda Williams, who is the continuous improvement business partner and who has a background in STEM and automation and other fields that are really interesting to us. And I hope, Yolanda, that you'll tell us a little bit more about what you're doing in this new position. And then lastly, Mark Kleehammer, who's the Vice President of Regulatory and Public Affairs for Entergy Louisiana, who I'll point out is a proud Tulane alum with 2 Tulane degrees. And so we're really happy to have all 3 of you here. Thank you so much. And then behind the scenes, we have a few of our colleagues at SoPA who are helping us to run the slides. So we're gonna start first. Travis is just gonna go through some of the slides that Entergy uses when it's doing recruitment of prospective employees, and then we'll move to the questions.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Suri. We really appreciate this opportunity, and it's exciting for us to partner with SoPA. We've had a strong relationship with Tulane for many years. I've only been at Entergy for 2 years, but that relationship surely preceded me. And so it's exciting to spend some time with this particular part of the school and this particular group of students, because I think it's something that we just haven't realized that we could really tap into and make some great connections and hopefully provide some great jobs for folks who are continuing their education, through Tulane. I'm seeing already, as I'm looking at the screen, some great questions coming across. And so I'm excited about us being able to get to those questions, and we might even be able to answer some of them unwittingly while we're talking through our different parts of the presentation. But for those of you who may only be familiar with Entergy from seeing bucket trucks out there, restoring power or working on, power lines, we're way more than that. I didn't realize this before I joined Entergy. I had no clue how big this company was and all of the different kinds of jobs that were available within Entergy and all that we do throughout our territory. It impressed me when I came in the door, and so I hope to share a little bit of that with some of you today. First and foremost, what you see on the surface, it really is, the best analogy is that iceberg analogy. What you see on the surface, it's like the top of an iceberg where, you see those bucket trucks, you see those line workers and everything out there, but what you don't realize is that those folks are doing a job for almost 3 million customers in the 4 states where we're centered. And our presence is actually beyond just those 4 states. We have nuclear plants up in Michigan and New York and in other parts of the country where we're generating power, and we do have some sort of business. And that model is changing a little bit right now, but we do have a presence outside of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Texas. But in these 4 states alone, like I said, it's almost 3 million customers like you see up on the screen, and you can see that colored in, where our territory is. So in order to provide those services to all of those customers, we need significant corporate support functions to support those businesses. So yes, we have lots of, skilled and craft workers like linemen and, technicians and all of these things, but we also have lots of engineers. We have lots of finance folks, HR folks. You can see some of the categories up here for what we're hiring. Nuclear is almost half of our business alone. So there's lots of stuff happening in the nuclear space, which is really exciting because that is some really reliable, clean energy. And that's the space that we enjoy working in. We have professional positions. So jobs like mine, and those of you who maybe met Mariah, her job, we work in HR. And so we do recruiting. I mentioned already our skilled and craft workers, and they have that picture there. And then we have a great internship program, and we hire lots of folks out of the internship program in the summer and the externships that happen throughout the school year. So from lots of angles, there's lots of opportunity. We do hire lots of folks. I will address one question that I saw pop up on the screen a little earlier because I think now is an appropriate time. And I saw someone mention, hey, I applied to Entergy a long time ago and I never heard anything, and there was a little sad face. And you know what? I felt bad. It made my face a little sad too. The reality is, and it's by no means an excuse, but just to give all of you some perspective, we get, I want to say it's over 100,000 applications every year. And unfortunately, it is impossible for the group of recruiters that we have to individually respond to every single person that applies. And I really wish that we could. And we try to put a lot of technology things in place to at least give some automatic responses and let people know where their applications stand. But just know that if you apply to anything that we have at Entergy, we're not trying to ignore you. We don't want to be mean to you. We really like you. I promise you. but we can't always personally respond to everyone. My experience and the way that I got a job at Entergy is I applied to, I would say, a good 4 or 5 jobs that my resume was very well suited for before I actually got a significant interview and a job offer and ended up coming in the company. So I tell people, don't give up, please. If you applied to one job and it didn't turn out, to be anything, guess what? You know what? Maybe that wasn't just the perfect one. So keep applying, and I promise you, if you stick with it, and if Entergy is really the place where you're supposed to be, it's going to happen. So don't give up. So we could forward to the other slide. Some of the things we offer our employees, and it's way more than this. This is by no means an exhaustive list of what we provide. These are some of the basics. So competitive pay, and we have holidays and vacations. I would say that all of this is very generous compared to some of what I've found in other companies in our area and in our territory. Entergy is great, with these things. Medical, dental, and vision benefits, again, very generous, very good, very solid. You don't have to worry about being taken care of when you have an emergency happen. We have great insurance in place and great benefits. We have retirement savings plans, always important, not something we always think about, more on the beginning end of our careers. Some of you folks have probably thought about this a lot because you are continuing your education, and you're likely not 18, 19, or 20 years old, and so you've probably thought about this a little bit. But we also, in addition to all those benefits, volunteerism is huge at Entergy. We have, I wanted to mention this a little earlier, but we have 4 stakeholders in our company. We're one of them, the employees, so that's huge. Employees are one of those 4 stakeholders, but we have our owners, we have our customers, and we have our communities. And being that our communities are, a large part of that stakeholder group, we want to give back. So we give paid time off for employees to be able to volunteer in the community. During the pandemic, and while we were all having to stay within our houses, we provided virtual volunteering opportunities. Now with the storms having passed, some of those in-person ones are happening again, and we're very careful that we do it in a safe way, but it's important that we give back. We have great training programs and educational reimbursement programs, so you can do training programs that are within the company and that are offered, in a lot of cases for free. Sometimes there's a fee because there's an outside vendor. There's also opportunities for students to go and pursue continuing their education like you're doing through SoPA. And if you qualify and you make the grades and you do all the right things, that the company will actually reimburse you for it. It's pretty incredible. And lots of our folks have gotten advanced degrees or additional degrees because of this program. And then we have employee groups. We call them ERGs. There are employee resource groups, and they explore and promote diversity and inclusion. So anything from our military veterans group to our LGBTQ group to, there's a women's group. We have numerous groups, and those are growing by the day. And it's to give people an opportunity to connect with people who have something maybe in common with them so that they can find, hey, how can we all add some sort of unique value to this company and support one another in the process? So lots of our employees are involved, in those groups as well. All right, next slide.
So we're going to take a break from the slides and move to the conversation, and then go back to the slides at the end. And so just to say, so the way that this webinar is set up, the panelists can see questions and the audience can't. And I don't know that we can actually change that midstream. And so we're going to go with what we have for now. I'm really glad in particular, Travis, that you said something about Entergy's operations outside of the Southeast, because our student audience and our alumni audience is actually all over the United States. And so I think that's a great thing for people to know, that there are opportunities in all kinds of places. And we're seeing a ton of very specific questions. And they're, in some cases, they're actually not really things that we would even be able to address right here in this webinar. And so one of the things that we are going to commit to doing is following up with the participants and making sure all of you have places to go and responses from us if it's at all possible. So the question I'd like to start with actually for Mark and Travis and Yolanda is, what's changed for you in the past 6 months in terms of your work life, where you're working or what you're doing or what the focus is. Could you just tell us a little bit about that? Yolanda, do you want to go first with that? What's changed for you in the past 6 months with your work? Because of the pandemic, because of other things going on, or has anything changed? So Yolanda, your phone is on mute. There you go.
Yeah, I say if I say that anything's changed, it's probably been the same thing that's changed for everyone. Being in a forced to work from home situation for the majority of staff, and if you're a professional with a job that can be worked from home. Now, there are some people in the field that I would say that are still having to show up and having to work in order to keep the functionality of Entergy's infrastructure going so that we all can enjoy electric services from home. But as far as the remote work, I would say is how to manage your day and your work-life balance when you're at home with your family on a regular basis. I think that would be the best thing for everyone, is to kind of figure out what does that look like for each individual? And I think companies should support mental health days. I've been seeing a lot of that, particularly with the tech industry, that they're willing to give their employees extra time away from the office just so that they can have more balance and more peace of mind. And particularly living here in the South along the Gulf Coast, where you're having to deal with multiple storms, particularly the hurricanes that's come through here recently, and not knowing which direction they go, they can definitely throw your day into a tailspin. And with Entergy also having to mobilize support for outages, our people are double and triple hatted into supporting outages, emergency operations, as well as sometimes their day-to-day duties as well, that it can become very stressful at times. But what I like about Entergy as a company is how it rises to the challenges of supporting our customers and our businesses in our communities and ensuring that they have power, even during a time like this when everyone is also impacted by COVID-19, and also relying on the new ways of operating in this new kind of lifestyle we all have to achieve.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So those are great perspectives. And I think that, for those of us who are lucky enough to have jobs, managing work-life balance is definitely a challenge. I'm wondering, Mark, how this has all been for you, or what's changed in 6 months. Is it similar to Yolanda? Is there anything that stands out to you about your recent experiences with work?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having us on the panel. First of all, I would agree that I think we're all kind of going through this and feeling our way along. For our operations folks, as Yolanda mentioned, if you are out in the field in a bucket truck, or if you are at a plant, working on transmission, any of those type of things are pretty similar. We're doing a lot to manage social distancing and other safety protocols. For those of us who have, the ability to work remotely, we initially decided that we were going to work remotely through right after Labor Day. And then the company has said, we're going to go through January 4th. I will give a shout out to our IT folks because I am shocked at how well it has gone and how productive folks have been. I know that there are some organizations where you get into really intensive engineering usage of, bandwidth and things that they have struggles. But for my team, I think we've all been able to continue to support the company, support our customers in the way that we did before. We're just doing it a little differently. Two things that I think have been different is, the focus. I deal a lot with policymakers, decision makers on the regulatory side. And there's been a lot of focus on the customer over the last 6 months, which is a great thing. There have been probably less long-term policy discussions about what resource planning decision you make, and more focus on customers and their ability to pay their bills. So we look at things on how do we provide more information to customers to match them up with opportunities, any federal assistance, LIHEAP, which is low income heating offset dollars. And we're providing more and more customer-centered options on how folks pay their bills. So we're really focused on that. I think that's been a great thing. It's part of this kind of compact that we have as a regulatory or regulated utility that, we really do look at Travis said, we're looking at our customers and our communities and our employees and our owners and trying to find that balance. And we're working pretty closely along with all of those who provide oversight. I will say the other thing that has been different is although our capability to work remotely has been a pleasant surprise, I do think that bringing newer employees up to speed and having their development occur is probably one of the things that's taken a hit during this. Travis can talk to how we are on onboarding or onboarding employees when they come on, but I'll just tell you from my perspective with the team that I work with, you do lose that popping into somebody's office and asking a question on how did you get there? How did you look at this 10 years ago? And some of that water cooler osmosis that I think helps employees get to the next level. And I think we're all dealing with that.
Right. That's a great point. I'm actually curious, Travis, we've seen some questions come through about remote work and Entergy's plans in this respect. And I'm wondering if you could say a little bit about so Mark just said the plan is through January 4th working remotely. What do you think the long term is going to look like in terms of, the majority of Entergy employees and where they will be working from, if you could say?
Well, you asked the right person because I'm the project manager for Entergy's Future of Work project right now. And so I'm working with a group of about 50 folks broken up into 4 work streams, and we are scoping this right now to see what is this going to look like post-pandemic, and there's a lot going into that. So, coming into this, if we rewind a little bit to around the beginning of March timeframe when everyone was told, okay, you need to start working from home if you can, talk about a major disruptor. For years we've been talking about disruptors in every industry and how, you hire that person who's different because they're going to challenge the way you think. Well, nothing like a global pandemic to come in and make you rethink everything that you do and how you do it. And so we realized through this forced experiment, like Yolanda was saying earlier, we were all kind of forced into it. Nobody had a choice. But we realized, hey, you know what? Even in a pretty conservative industry like the utility business, this can kind of work. Like people are doing a pretty good job. And we noticed that initially on the front end that a lot of people were performing at a much greater level even than before, and the metrics that we measure against and everything was proving that. What we have found through the last 6-7 months or so is that sort of peaked very early on, and then a certain fatigue started setting in because everyone was just pushing so hard to get so much done and take care of the kids and take care of other responsibilities that people started getting exhausted. And so we started doing this project of scoping what this could look like long term if we had a good chunk of our workforce working remotely. We started this in late June, early July at the direction of the office of our chief executive. So all of our senior leaders, all the chiefs in the company, they said, hey, we want y'all to go out and take a look at this. And we started benchmarking with other companies, looking at best practices of companies that are already doing it. And we're still in that phase right now. We've had a couple of updates with all of our senior executives, and we're looking at where to go next. Right now, there is a potential that some of our workforce could return to, on-site locations in January, but no one knows that. That's all speculation. We thought maybe it would happen in August or September, and the pandemic proved us wrong, and we said, we want to be safe. We believe in living safe at Entergy, and so safety is our priority. So we pushed that back a bit, and right now we are saying, okay, well, let's start preparing. There's 2 projects really that are going on. One is we're preparing for some sort of re-entry where people go back to the office, but then there's also that longer term project of, well, what does this look like in a more quote unquote normal situation where maybe, you know, a quarter of your people are fully on site, maybe a quarter are fully remote, and then the other half is somewhere between partially remote, partially on site. You know, first of all, how do we determine who goes into which category? How do we manage those teams? And what we found is we're making some good progress on that front, but we realize that, you know what, there's things that we need to fix now, because this can't be sustained long-term for any company if we don't fix some of the little glitches and challenges like that fatigue I was talking about earlier, and training, because not every manager is just born with these skills of being a leader of people in all different, you know, scenarios, with some working at home, some working on site, and all that sort of thing. So we've been working with our learning and development team on building new training, new training curriculum around that to try to help support that. We're looking at what things can we provide for our employees to make it a little easier on them that is fiscally feasible for the company, but that really puts our employees, not only their physical health, but their mental health first. We're looking at all of these things from different angles so that we can start in the next couple of months rolling out more stuff to help people for now. And we're optimistic that in 2021, we'll be in a position that we can start bringing some people back to the office. Again, when, nobody knows exactly, but, you know, let's say it would happen to be January, that we can start bringing some people back to the office in a safe, phased approach, but where we can also start looking long-term at who even needs to come back to the office and does it make sense. And so our executives have lots of decisions to make around that as we continue to provide them with data and benchmarking and all of this stuff, but we're actively working towards that right now. I'll say it's big. It's a big project, and as we talk with other utilities and folks in other industries who are working on similar projects, you know, everyone's looking to each other to say, what are you doing? No, what are you doing? And have you tried this? And learn from one another's mistakes. But I'm optimistic that this whole disruption of this pandemic and everything that's going on, and not just the pandemic, I mean, let's face it, in our world, we've had lots of disruptions, and they're pushing us in sometimes a painful way to get to a better place, I think, as a society. And as we move towards that, it's exciting to know that so many of us are involved in these kind of projects that's truly going to transform the way that work is done, like for the future, forever. Right. You know, it's pretty exciting. So I share all of that and all of it. You know, I know you have a couple of other questions you'll probably ask that I'll give a little more color on, but you know, on this particular topic. But what I will say right now is that if you are open to going with change and using it as a catalyst for growth and for new opportunities, you are going to have a very fun, successful career. Not without its stresses at times, because you want to get it right, but it's an opportunity that's right for folks who just want to grow their career and get involved in new things and changing the way we do business.
I think that's great, and I think it's, you know, it's consistent with the world, right? So thank you for that little preview. I wanted to ask, actually, Yolanda, would you? So you're in a relatively new role, is that right? How would you describe for our audience sort of basically what you do at Entergy? And you know, we are really interested in your technology background, and I don't know if that's so much a focus for your job right now, but could you just talk for a couple minutes about it?
Sure, no problem. So my background has been in technology for the last about 17 years. I've worked for Fortune 1 Walmart for the last 11 years before I came over to Entergy. So at that company, I was in the emerging technology field, and I ran technology teams in the areas of machine learning, RPA, which is robotic process automation, as well as chatbots and natural language processing. And coming here, I'm trying to help them to mature their RPA program. It was recently consolidated, and there were 4 directors in automation when I first got here. That work has been consolidated to 1. And the others of us have all migrated to different roles in the company. My role is continuous improvement, and my job is really to help to generate the strategy for how to implement change in processes whether it's by technology, innovation, people, or process changes. So it's more strategic. In technology, you're more in an operational standpoint of helping to implement already decided upon technology solutions for business partners. In this case, it's helping to design the strategy before you to figure out if what route you're going to take to actually solve the problem. So continuous improvement is in and of itself also a methodology, and it's a practitionership attached to that. A lot of people may be aware of Six Sigma or Lean Sigma. Those are two of the main models. Another lean model that some people may be familiar with is in technology. It's called Agile. Another technology lean model would be DevOps. So there's lots of models out there to help to streamline processes depending on if you're in a business line or a technical line. And I would just say that it just takes the best of my both worlds and kind of merges them into a role where I can help supply chain, corporate business functions, and technology teams to decide what routes they should take to create the changes they want to see. My main background is actually digital transformation. And that basically means that I modernize systems. So Walmart, I came in at a time where they were modernizing 30-year-old systems, trying to leapfrog technology into the early 2000s. And that would involve digitizing a lot of processes that weren't previously digitized. And that transforms the way teams work, normally how they're organized, and even the kind of roles you need on a team. So those changes can be quite dramatic, but they also yield high, big bang results. So in this role now, we're trying to figure out where we can actually start doing those same type of activities. And we've identified a couple of business teams that are going through transformation. And it's always exciting. Transformation is kind of leading the cusp of change. And that deals with a lot of resistance, but the payoff is so big that at the end of the day, most people can't resist wanting to go through it once they see it play out. So, so that's a nutshell what my role is and what I've been doing and how I plan to utilize it in the future.
That's
Here at
great.
Entergy.
So, you know, so automation and so continuous improvement is something that's been around for a long time, but it seems like technology really has greatly increased the pace at which these changes are happening. And so automation, artificial intelligence, and machine learning and all these things are affecting all of us, I think. And so I'm actually curious, more for Mark and Travis, if you have any reflections on the impact that these kinds of changes are having on the Entergy workforce, and also advice for people who are looking for opportunities in their careers, right? Travis, you sort of generally characterize the kinds of people who are successful at Entergy, but there are aspects of that as well that relate to how jobs are changing and which jobs are disappearing and those kinds of things. Mark, is this anything that you have thoughts about?
Yeah, I mean, look, when I came out of college, I didn't aspire to go work for a utility in New Orleans, right? Everything kind of happens, and I think the key is agility. Kind of aspirational agility on what you're looking to do. My track within Entergy, I came in when I was 29. I've been here for about 22 years. I did finance, I did strategic planning, and I moved from one area to another. And it probably wasn't 3 or 4 years until probably a year and a half into a Fortune 500 company when I realized, as Travis said, we have so many things that we say grace over, so many different niches that people are in charge of. There really is an immense amount of opportunity. And it's probably 3 or 4 years into my career when I realized what my skill sets were likely pointing me toward. And, it's been working on issues like long-term policy and resource planning. So I think keeping an open mind and, as everybody said, being agile with where you're going is very important. It's good to have drive and expectations and move forward, but you also have to remember, you got to do the job you have today, excel at it, find the next one, and excel throughout. And then I think your opportunities are unlimited.
Travis, has automation and all the things that are going along with what Yolanda talked about change the characteristics of the people who you try to recruit to come to Entergy?
Yeah, so technology has changed the way that we do what we do from a talent attraction standpoint. You know, I mean, there was not so long ago when I joined Entergy that we would set up an Excel spreadsheet at a recruiting event and have people, you know, fill in their name, their phone number, you know, now we have an app that we can take a picture of a resume and use OCR technology to pull all the information off that resume. And, you know, and it syncs up now with our applicant tracking system so that our recruiters can see all of those notes and everything that we've gotten, you know, from an event. So on our side, from a recruiting perspective, technology and the way that that space is changing is helping us tremendously, and it's helping us to be more efficient and to connect the dots a little bit better in what we do. And I would say as a business, it's transforming the way we do everything at Entergy, period. You know, automation is huge, and we've just gone through, well, we're still going through this whole process of, you know, I got my digital meter at home just a couple weeks ago. The guy came and installed it, you know, while I was working, and it was real funny to see that. But those are the things that are happening. We're employing technology to help us do what we do in a better, smarter, more efficient way to give our customers, which oftentimes are ourselves, you know, reflecting back to when I was talking about our stakeholders earlier. The cool part about employees being one of those 4 stakeholders is all the decisions that we make affect us at home too. So we all have a real stake in it. But this technology is helping us to all be better customers and to stay on top of the kind of energy that we're using and how and when we're using it. So automation plays a big part into what we're doing today and really where we're going in the future.
That's great. Thanks. I'm wondering, Mark, if you would comment a little bit on what it's like to work at a company that is so fundamental to our functioning and how we live, and you know, thinking about being on the hook for Lake Charles coming back, for example. What's that like, and how does it motivate you as you do your work?
Yeah, well, it is, as I mentioned, when you are in a regulated utility, you know, you have an opportunity and you have an obligation to your communities and your customers. You know, we do have folks who we answer to, which are the regulators, but the way to do this successfully is to have a partnership with your customers and your communities, and everybody work together on it. I've thought about this a lot in my career. You know, I know a lot of attorneys who are probably not, you know, super satisfied with what they're doing for the world at times. But when you have an event like the hurricane that we've just gone through, and you see everybody in a company like this pulling together, you know, whether you are a lineman who is essentially a first responder, or my administrative assistant who spent 2 weeks in Lake Charles processing information for everybody as we sat and put together, you know, basically an army of 10,000 people to rebuild part of that area. There's such a level of satisfaction of bringing, you know, this essential service back to the community. It's really amazing. About a week ago, we had pretty catastrophic destruction to our transmission system in and around Lake Charles. And, you know, this may date me, but, you know, going back to Katrina, I remember when we lit up the Crescent City connection, and that was like this ray of hope for the city coming back. Earlier last week, we had energized the first line going into Lake Charles, and we're starting to pick up customers. And one of my peers who I've worked with for quite some time, she's been with the company for her whole career, she said it was like being an expectant grandmother, waiting to see if that line was going to go in and it was going to hold, because you know what that does for folks and what that brings to them, right? You know, you can't move back. You can't go clean up your house. You can't do any of these things. Or if you do, it's not very efficient to do it off of a generator. So there is definitely a partnership that we have with our customers and our communities, and I think a very sense of connection that we have to it, which is really rewarding.
That's great. And I think for SoPA, a lot of our students are motivated by mission as much as they are by wanting to do interesting work and be well compensated for it. And so I think it's yet another reason why it's such a good match. we've had some questions coming in related to like, sort of career development and sort of how Entergy hires. And I think Travis at the beginning made reference to the fact that our student audience is not all 21-year-olds. And so we see a question from Larry, for example, who is trying to transition into new career opportunities in his 40s. And I'm wondering if you would say something about people who are mid-career, who aren't starting out fresh, including actually veterans maybe, and the opportunities at Entergy. You're still muted, Travis.
Sorry, I didn't realize that the computer had remuted me. So I actually saw Larry's comment a little while ago, and it touched close to home because, Larry, if you're still on and you're listening, I'm going to tell you I'm 43, and I joined Entergy 2 years ago. So you're ahead of me in your age of changing careers, starting a company. I didn't change my career, but I changed industries drastically. I've been working in HR and recruiting for many years, and I lived away in New York for a long time where I really built that career, moved back home to Louisiana, and actually, before Entergy, I worked in banking on Wall Street and did some recruiting programs there, technology at NASDAQ. I moved to Louisiana and was the director of talent management for Cardiovascular Institute of the South, so cardiology and healthcare. And then now I'm at a power utility company, and I'll tell you, Larry, that it's completely possible and doable. You're going after advancing your education at such a great institution, and anything you can find along the way to put some experience under your belt to get you in the direction of the job that you actually think you want to do, where you want your career to head, is obviously helpful. But there are opportunities out there for you to redirect your career into a place that you're going to get the satisfaction you're looking for, and you're going to find that home. I'll tell you, and I'm not saying this as a recruiter or a talent attraction person at Entergy. I'm telling you this as Travis Guidry, guy from Cut Off, Louisiana, Lafourche Parish, who is working for this big company headquartered in New Orleans, that I have never had such a gratifying experience in my job, in my career, in my entire career, as I'm having right now in my mid-40s at Entergy. So I just want to say that to encourage you that it's there, it's right for the picking. If you work hard and you go for it, it's gonna happen. And it might not even be at Entergy, it might be somewhere else, but life has a way of working out that way that I'm confident you're going to get to exactly where you're supposed to be. And if we're lucky, maybe you will end up at Entergy with us. But all that to say is right now, there's amidst a lot of people not having work, I think in the professional space, there are still a lot of jobs out there. And those jobs are going to be really ripe for the picking for those people who are really hard workers, who are go-getters, and who are what we like to call all-around athletes. Someone who isn't just a one-trick pony who can do one thing, but someone who comes with that experience, that they've worked in other industries, they've worked in other jobs, they bring a diversity of thought to the way that things are done. That's the way we're surviving right now through this whole pandemic and through all of the curveballs that 2020 wants to throw our way, is that we have such an incredible workforce of people who come from not just the power utility industry, but from other backgrounds, who are rethinking the way that we're doing things. And people are listening, saying, yep, we never tried that before. Maybe we should talk about that a little bit more. So that experience you have, Larry, and for other people that are maybe similar to you who are listening in right now, it's going to add value to wherever you end up. So there's definitely opportunity.
That's great. Thank you. So here's another topic where some questions have been coming in, and that is, most large companies have some mix of employing people directly and contracting out. And I'm curious, really from any of you, to what extent is that part of the course of business for Entergy, that there's some functions that you decide are not core and other entities are more qualified to do them, or there might be other reasons? Is that something that I guess really any of you could speak to, contracting out for work?
Well,
So,
I'll just, go ahead,
yeah,
Travis.
Mark, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that there's a pretty good mix. I mean, you know, we have, even on the legal side, you know, we have what is essentially an in-house law firm, yet we have outside law firms that will support, you know, public injury claims, things like that. So whether it's in accounting, or a whole slew of roles, IT as well, I think that we have a mix of what is the base load that's appropriate for the company, and then how do you supplement that and augment it as needed.
Okay. Any other comments about this this area of questioning?
Yeah, I'd say Mark really, you know, hit the nail on the head with that one. And we kind of, we reevaluate those things on a regular basis to see what makes sense as far as that ratio of what's going to be done in-house and what's going to be done, you know, through external vendors. I think IT is a good example of that. In recent years, we were doing lots with external contractors, and now there's a whole lot more IT jobs that have come in-house, specifically because of automation and all of those things that are happening. It makes more sense that we change the ratio to have more people in-house.
That's great. That's a great example. So here's another area where we've had some questions. Emergency and security studies is a big area of study in our school. Physical protection, cybersecurity, all those kinds of things. Could you say a little bit about what kinds of jobs Entergy hires for in this area in particular?
Sure. There's so much need for people with those backgrounds. I can't even tell you. And I couldn't tell you today what all the positions are that might be listed right now, or what, you know, that's with the pandemic has changed some of our needs in the short term, but we are going to see a lot more positions posted, I think, in the near future. We obviously, being a power utility and having an electric grid under our care, we need tremendous cybersecurity. That's very important to the work that we do in just protecting, you know, the grid. I mean, imagine if, you know, terrorists or anything were to have access to that. It would just be, you know, a nightmare, to say the least. So we have lots of need for that on the IT side, and when we're talking about cybersecurity. When it comes to people with backgrounds like national security backgrounds and whatnot, I mean, think again about what we're doing, not just where IT is concerned, but with all the storms and everything that's happening right now. And we have all these people out in the field. You know, Mark touched on it a little while ago, but we went from a couple of weeks ago having over 600,000 people that didn't have power because of that storm. And I heard on a call recently that like 10,000 poles were changed, and we're down to, you know, maybe 30,000 customers, which is still a lot. You know, I mean, we recognize that, but from 600,000 to 30,000 in such a short period of time, that takes a huge workforce working in sometimes dangerous situations or potentially dangerous situations. So we need folks with those backgrounds who can help us think through what's the safest way to do it, how do we protect our employees, how do we put mechanisms in place to ensure our customers are safe as well. So there's lots of need for security and for that, you know, that sort of background, both in the virtual world and in the physical world, in what we do at Entergy.
That's great.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll add to that just real quickly. You know, I was asking about the level of veterans that we have, that we've brought on and that are within the company. Mm-hmm. And I think it's something like 11% of our workforce is veteran, or has experience there. But when you get into cybersecurity, when you get into some of the compliance issues, security for the transmission system, some of the generators, and you have, that's a much higher percent there. And I think in the nuclear division, it's something like almost 25% of our employees have a military background of some sort. That's
great. Thanks for calling that out, Mark. That's a very large proportion of our student population as well. And I would think it's very likely we have people who are on right now who have security clearances, who are thinking about opportunities. So we're gonna in a minute, we're gonna go to wrapping up, and Travis is gonna show a couple more slides that give concrete information about creating an identity in Entergy's jobs database. But before we do that, I just wanted to ask all three of our panelists, is there any other sort of compelling reason why you think people should consider careers at Entergy that hasn't already come up during our conversation?
I will speak to that because it's one of the main drivers for why we're doing so much automation and why digital products are so important to Entergy at this time. We have a large complement of folks getting ready for retirement. So this is a pivotal time to hire in the community. People who would want longevity with the company is very much appreciated. I would also say just, I'm new to the company too. I've only been here a year and a half. But from what I have seen so far, there's definitely a strong need for the company to get ready for that particular onslaught of change, because as people migrate off into their next stage of life, you're definitely going to need a fresh influx of workers to take on the new challenges that come with moving the company into 2021 and hopefully into the future.
That's great. Thank you. Mark or Travis, anything you want to comment on that hasn't already come up in this area? You have made a lot of compelling arguments for Entergy, I would say.
Now, I'll just reiterate the 2 points. Number one, it's a big company with a lot of opportunity. Once you're inside, you see just how massive and how broad it is to be in a Fortune 500 company. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. And the other thing I would say, I really truly believe everything I said about the point of view that our leadership has and the commitments to the communities that we live in and work in. And that really gives a sense of purpose for working for this company.
That's fabulous. I think Ann Conlon was going to reshare the slides, and we had a couple more slides to show folks while we're finishing up. We've had such great participation in this panel, such great attendance. We have recorded all the questions that people asked, and we'll follow up wherever we can, and we'll certainly share them with Entergy. But go ahead, Travis, if you want to talk a little bit more about the actual process.
So yeah, and before I get into the actual process, I want to touch on something, just piggybacking on Yolanda and Mark. I think what sets Entergy apart is the leadership that we have and the tremendous appetite to support and grow employees in their career. And I'll give you an example. I've worked for several companies, as y'all learned a little earlier, in several different industries. And this is the first time that I see it to this degree. Since I've been at Entergy a little over 2 years, I've had some really phenomenal opportunities and experiences afforded to me to take on some large projects like the Future of Work project and a few others. And there was a particular incident a couple of weeks ago where I was working with my vice president on a presentation for our chief HR officer, and I was having an off day, and it just wasn't usually my standard of things that I like, the way that I like things done. And I turned it into him because it was very time sensitive and I just didn't feel great about it. And at 11 o'clock that night, he sent it back to me with some revisions that were really incredible, what I wish I would have done in the first place. And the next day we were talking and I said, look, I'm really sorry that you were up till 11 making those edits. I feel like I should have done a better job in what I gave you. And his response to me was, don't worry about it. My job is to make you successful and to support you. And if I have to stay up till 11 o'clock to do that, I'm going to do it with a happy heart. And you tell me how many jobs you've had and people you've worked for that have had that sort of attitude, that didn't ream you out because your work wasn't perfect on any given day. And, it's not only my experience. I look around at a lot of people at Entergy and just conversations that I have, and it's just the culture that we have. We have a very servant leadership type culture at Entergy. And I'll tell you, wherever you go to work, that's always something to look for because it's a great place to grow yourself and to grow your career. And if you would like to have an opportunity to work at Entergy, the first place to go is jobs.entergy.com. And so it's our online database where we have all of our jobs listed. And even better, what you can do when you go to that website is you can join our talent community. You'll see at the bottom of the landing page, there's a place where you could put in your email address and it'll ask you some questions. And what it does is, and that's what helped me find my job at Entergy, I got alerts because I did that. Every time a new job in HR was posted, I would get an alert saying, you know, hello, Travis Guidry, such and such a job has been posted at Entergy. Click here to apply. And if it was something that I thought really lined up well with my background and with what I wanted to do, I'd apply for it. And like I said, you know, about 3 or 4 times of doing that, I got a call, I got an interview, and in a very, you know, short order, I was able to get a job offer. And here I am doing this today. I never would have imagined, but that's really the best place to get started, is at that website, joining our talent community, getting your information in there. And the minute you get an alert, there's a new job posted, don't sit on it, apply right away. Because, you know, you heard me say earlier, we get thousands and thousands upon thousands of applicants for our jobs. So you want to be at the top of the heap. And before we, you know, go, I want to say, you know, the statistic Mark gave earlier on veterans was kind of impressive. But you know what? It's even better than that. So for our veteran folks who are participating, I want them to realize what, you know, how much we value our veterans. I pulled up a recent presentation I did because I knew I had that number in there. And if you look at the workforce across all industries, about 6% of the workforce has a military veteran status. As of March 1st of this year, 14.5%, almost 14.6% of active Entergy employees had a veteran or a military status. So we take pride in that. We're excited about that. And we hope, you know, you folks who've been in the military will take a really hard look at Entergy, because we could use your experience and your background.
That's
right
great.
Here is my team. Yeah, so right here is my team. You know, look, I'm my title's manager, but you know what? We're all in the trenches together. We all do this together. Jonathan Floyd is an amazing D&I recruiter, works with, you know, lots of schools, lots of external organizations on recruiting diverse talent into our company. Roger Kitchens is our military veteran recruiter. He is, you know, he's a veteran. He does amazing work with that population and is largely responsible for bringing all those folks in. And then Mariah Landry, she's our events coordinator, but she's also really kind of our campus person right now, and she does lots of work in the school space. So this team right here, these are the folks that I get to work with every day, and it's such a pleasure to work with them. So at any given time, if you apply, you may get to interact with one of us. But we have our talent attraction inbox listed here. It's sourcing@entergy.com. I'll tell you, it's really hard to get back to everyone, as I said earlier, because of the volume of people, you know, that are interested in working at Entergy, but we do our best. So if there's anything we can help you with, you know, in any reasonable fashion, you know, please reach out to us.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much. Thanks to my colleagues, Madison Duncan and Ann Conlon, for having us run this evening. Thanks to Cynthia Washington, our senior career advisor, who did so much work of working with Mariah and other folks at Entergy to have this event tonight. And thanks especially to Yolanda, Mark, and Travis. We really appreciate you taking the time to participate. And we did record this. We'll share the recording with people who registered. And hopefully you'll get lots more applications and great employees from Tulane SoPA. So thanks everyone, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.